Blessings, everyone. Our subject at the present time is the judgment of Daniel 7 and its parallels with Revelation. So we're going to be looking at parallels between Daniel chapter 7 verses 9, 10, and 13 and various places in the book of Revelation. Now I mentioned those particular verses in Daniel 7 because they're the ones which most specifically deal with the judgment, and therefore are the only ones that we'll be dealing with now. After going through these parallels, we'll look at a few lessons that we can learn from them. Our first parallel is found in Daniel 7 verse 9, which reads, "I beheld till the thrones were cast down." Its correspondent passage is found in Revelation 20 verse 4, which reads, "And I saw thrones." Our second parallel is also found in Daniel 7 verse 9 and reads, "And the Ancient of Days did sit," which parallels Revelation chapter 4 verse 2, which reads, "And one sat on the throne." Our third parallel is in Daniel 7 verse 10, which reads, "A fiery stream issued and came forth from before him," which finds a parallel in Revelation chapter 15 verse 2, which reads, "And I saw as it were a sea of glass mingled with fire." Our fourth parallel is in Daniel 7 verse 13, which reads, "One like the Son of Man came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him," which parallels Revelation chapter 5 verse 6, which reads, "In the midst of the throne and of the four beasts stood a lamb." Our fifth parallel is found in Daniel 7 verse 10, which says, "The books were opened," and that corresponds to Revelation chapter 20 verse 12, which says, "And the books were opened." Our sixth parallel is in Daniel 7 verse 10 as well, and it reads, "Thousands ministered unto him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him," which finds its parallel in Revelation chapter 5 verse 11, which reads, "And I heard the voice of many angels round about the throne, and the number of them was 10,000 times 10,000 and thousands of thousands." Our seventh parallel is also found in the 10th verse of Daniel 7, which reads, "The judgment was set, and the books were opened," which parallels with Revelation chapter 14 verse 7, which reads, "The hour of his judgment is come," as well as Revelation chapter 20 verse 12, which reads, "And I saw the dead, small and great, stand before God, and the books were opened, and another book was opened, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged out of those things which were written in the books, according to their works." While that is far from an exhaustive list of parallels to be found between Daniel and Revelation, even from within Daniel 7, it should be enough to show the candid mind that the judgment being spoken of in Daniel 7 and the judgment being spoken of in Revelation are one and the same judgment. What we find in these texts is that the description of the judgment in Daniel points forward to what is found in Revelation. Likewise, the description of the judgment in Revelation points back to that found in Daniel. Since this is true, by comparing both books, we get a more complete view of the judgment than we would get by looking at just one or the other. For example, by looking at Revelation, we learn that this judgment spoken of by both Daniel and John is a judgment which takes place in heaven, which can be found in Revelation chapter 4 verse 1, which says, "After this I looked, and behold, a door was opened in heaven." And not only do we learn that it is in heaven, but we learn that it is in a specific place in heaven, namely the heavenly sanctuary. This can be found in Revelation chapter 4 verse 5, among other places. But this particular place reads, "And there were 7 lamps of fire burning before the throne," which, for anyone who understands the Old Testament sanctuary, knows that this is clear sanctuary language. If you would like some more information concerning this heavenly sanctuary, one of the places you can look is in the book of Hebrews, particularly chapters 8 and 9, although the entire book deals with it to some extent. Now let us look at one of the aspects of the judgment as revealed to Daniel that helps us to gain a little bit more light as to what John saw in Revelation. This aspect can be found by looking at the context of the judgment passage in Daniel 7. The beginning of verse 9 reads, "I beheld till the thrones were cast down." The phrase, "I beheld till," indicates that Daniel was beholding something before he saw the thrones set up in heaven. According to the context, what he beheld was 4 beasts arise up out of the sea. The first beast was like a lion, the second like a bear, the third like a leopard, and the fourth was dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly, although it doesn't give a specific animal to which this beast is likened unto. If you'd like more information concerning what these beasts specifically represent, you can see our series on Daniel 7. But the short version of it is that these beasts represent, in order, the lion represents Babylon, the bear represents Medo-Persia, the leopard represents Greece, and the nondescript beast represents Rome in both of its phases. The first phase representing pagan Rome, and the second phase representing Papal Rome. So according to Daniel 7, the order of events is as follows. First, the reign of Babylon. Second, the reign of Medo-Persia. Third, the reign of Greece. Fourth, the reign of pagan Rome. Fifth, the reign of Papal Rome. And sixth, the judgment set up in heaven. So from this we learn that the judgment in heaven is not set up until after the rise of Papal Rome. Not only this, but we also learn that the judgment would begin before the downfall of the fourth beast. For it says in Daniel 7 verse 11, I beheld even till the beast was slain, and his body destroyed, and given to the burning flame. Now to summarize what we've learned. First we learned that the judgment spoken of in Daniel 7 is the same judgment spoken of in the book of Revelation. Next we learned that by comparing the passages, the description of the judgment from one book will shed light on the description of the judgment in the other book. From the book of Revelation, we learned that the judgment takes place in the heavenly sanctuary. And from Daniel 7, we learned that the judgment commences sometime between the rise of Papal Rome and its fall. What we've learned here is really only scratching the surface as to what can be found concerning the judgment in the books of Daniel and Revelation. So I encourage you all to study for yourselves, and to search the scriptures comparing the books of Daniel and Revelation along with the writings of all the other prophets. So as you're studying the scriptures, remember that we have also a more sure word of prophecy, whereunto ye do well that ye take heed, as unto a light that shineth in a dark place, until the day dawn and the day star arise in your hearts. Blessings.